Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to talk about vintage buttons. We're going to talk about some values, what to look for, and some specifics. We're going to go way back on these, and we're going to look at the golden age, the 1820s and 30s, all the way up through to the 1890s. Here's a little assortment of golden age buttons. These all date to the 1830s through the 1850s or so. This is a typical example of what you would expect to find. Animals and things along that are very prevalent in these, as you can see this horse. This one here dates to the 1850s just by looking at the back of this. This is what you would expect to find on an 1850s button. This is called a raised mark in a depressed channel. The letters are pressed up from a channel that's sunken into the button. This is what you would want to find. This is a coat size. They came in 3 or 4 different sizes. Buttons like this sell in the $40 or $50 range all day long. These are typical of what you would find from this era. Over and over again, you'll see similar styles. Like here is a dog. It obviously looks to be a hunting style. Another 1850s button. Here's an interesting one as well. This one goes back to the 1830s or 40s. Extra rich quality is the back mark on this one. That is a company maker for the quality of the button. It's extra rich quality, better than just an average button. You can see the fanciful designs. Dogs are very popular. Wolves, as you can see here. Another here, this is a boar. You can see animals and such forth. Now, some animals like this one may have been on a lady's dress coat or something along that line. These look like lovebirds or doves or something along that way. As you can see, they're all similar in style. They all have a unique look to them. Again, another 1850s button here. This one's another 1830s or 40s. Again, the back mark dictates how old it is. Treble standard, extra rich is what's marked on the back of this one. This is a standard marking from the 1830s through the 1850s. Again, value-wise on most any of these sorts of buttons runs from 20 to say 50 or 60 bucks on average for any one of this sort of button. So it's something that if you're a collector, you're looking for constantly to find a specific variety, or you collect animals or something along that line. As you can see, there is a ton of variety, a ton of styles of these. There was only a few companies that made the mass majority of these, but still the variety is just all over the place in this sort of thing. Here's a couple other fine examples. One looks like a whippet, and again, it's an 1850s button. This may be a similar style of dog as well, as you can see, and it's another 1850s button. Now, the material they made these out of varied as well, too. This one's brass, and it has mother of pearl, which is actually made out of shell. Something like this, even not in the greatest condition, can still garner 15 or 20 bucks. Even on a bad day. This one's early as well, too. This one dates probably to around 1800. Other materials used would be sterling silver. This is a 925 solid silver button here. This was probably sand cast by somebody. Something like this could easily sell for 125 or more on any given day of the week. Some sorts like this can sell for hundreds of dollars if it's designed and done and cast by someone well known. Now, these two here are made out of vulcanized rubber, and these were made in 1851. This is what would be called gutta percha. And if you look closely at the back, you can see it's from the National Rubber Company. This would be a Goodyear button, and it's dated 1851. These are nice early style. So again, they made buttons like this out of tons of different material. Here's 2 examples that are pressed out of horn. This is literally a horn from a deer or some other animal, and they were pressed in a heated process to impress a design on them. They have metal shanks on the back, and as you can see, the one actually has a maker's mark actually impressed into the horn as well. These sorts of buttons can also go for 25 or 30 bucks a piece, just as you see them. Here's some other examples made out of antler. Antler is another substance that you will see buttons like this made for. Things like this as well will go for 20 or 30 bucks a piece on most given days. Well made. Again, they are also impressed. This one dates to around 1860 or 1870. Very nicely marked with a brass shank, the brass loop on the back. This one as well is made out of 2 pieces of antler, and you can easily see the construction method on this. Just as this one here has the fox, the wolf on the front, again, it is made out of antler as well with a brass shank. Here's a rather interesting one. The center of this is hand-carved jet, which is like a mineral or rock in the center, and it's been encased in a brass fixture or mount. It's mounted on the back as well with a very nice shank. Something like this, again, 30 or 40 bucks on something like this, especially with the design of the boar on the face. Now here's a coat and a cuff of another interesting construction. This is pressed leather. This is a chunk of leather that was heated and then pressed under pressure to press in the design you see here. They are marked on the back as well. They have a brass ring around them to hold them together, as well as a brass shank. The brass shank is actually between those 2 layers, and that is what holds it in. It's a very solid piece. They're pretty much fused together. You can see it has a bison on the front of both of these. These probably date to the 1860s or so as well. Again, 25 or 30 bucks for most of these, especially the larger the size on these. Here's an interesting one. This is a glass one. It's glass designed in the front, 2 different types of glass, so you can see the distinguishing between the horse and the base ground behind it. Another ring of brass, and it is shanked as well. Something like this should sell for 15 or 20 bucks on its own, just as you see it, small or not. Now into glass too. These are 2 micro mosaic buttons. Individual teeny tiny pieces of glass have been stacked and glued into the face of this. It's been ground down to be flat, flush on the face as well. These sorts can date back to the 1790s all the way up into the 1820s and 30s. Brass ring around it as well as a brass shank on the back. It is coated as well. Rather interesting and unique items here. Now these sorts can sell from, say, $30 for small ones with not much intricacy in them, all the way up into the thousands depending on the design. Some of these are done by well-known artists or from specific areas such as Milan, which has some excellent, exquisite Italian micro-mosaic buttons coming from that region. Excellent examples here. Now here's a couple other solid cast brass ones as well by a very well-known company. These date to the 1830s as well. They're well marked on the back by the company also. Excellent examples of something like this. Now these sorts are made by the same companies who made military uniforms of the day. So in the 1830s, the Scoville company made military buttons almost of the same construction with similar back marks on the back, similar writing on the back of these. The price range on these runs from around $40 up to a couple $100 as well. These show sporting related scenes, a man shooting a gun, hunting ducks, and then a hunting dog in the other one. There are many collectors, there's button clubs as well, where these sorts of things change hands all the time. There are specific sites for buttons and a vast, huge market of button buyers on eBay as well. These can show up all over the place. We find them personally at estate sales, auctions all the time. We can also find them at flea markets, antique malls, antique stores, and even garage sales and tins constantly. This is just one area of buttons. Most of what we've shown you today would date from the 1820s all the way up into the 1860s and 70s. This is a huge area of collectibles, and there is a ton of value in this sort of thing. These are everyday items that you would have used on your clothing constantly. And again, even though the clothing has rotted away, people use the buttons over, so these still show up. There are lots of them around if you know what to look for and where to find them. There are vast assortments of collectors for this type of thing. But that's what we have for you today. Well, there you are. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
sometimes you don't. Almond Joy's got nuts, Mounds don't. Almond Joy's got real milk chocolate, coconut and munchy nuts too. Mounds got deep dark chocolate and chewy coconut. Ooh. Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Peter Paul, Almond Joy's got nuts, Peter Paul, Mounds don't.
Plus, now there's also a new Mounds with creamy rich milk chocolate.